It's hard to encapsulate all I learned from 14 years at HBO. I think I tried to count how many projects I worked on once, and I stopped at about 150. It was a lot. And most of those were films and miniseries because that was the bulk of what I oversaw. But in the last, I'd say 7 or 8 years that I was there, I started to work on the series as well, and I would do a lot of the LA casting for shows that were not based in Los Angeles. So I got the opportunity to work on Sopranos and Sex and the City, and that was really fun. Just like, let's just pause for a moment. Sex and the City and Sopranos, how lucky can anybody get? I got to do all the really fun stuff where the main casting director was in New York, and she was working with the production team. And I got to just do the sessions in LA. So I had all the fun. I got to work with the actors in the room, which is my hands-down favorite thing, and then none of the responsibility, which is great. And when we got to do The Sopranos, I mean, I'd have to say one of my favorite things to do, besides the fact that that show and a lot of the HBO shows attracted a lot of talent who would normally never come into auditions. So bigger name people would come in, and I'd get a chance to really work with them, and I get to play Tony, you know, a lot. It was fun, and then some of the other shows that. You know, somebody once asked me, what's your favorite thing that you ever worked on? And I'm really glad you didn't ask me that, because that's like Sophie's choice to me. And that's like picking one would be really difficult. But one of my favorite projects to work on was Game of Thrones. I loved working on Game of Thrones. And the thing that was really interesting about this project was that it began, we literally got handed a stack of books. There was no script when we started working on it. So they were just like, here, read these. I don't know if you've ever read any of those books, but they are dense. Fantastic, but dense. And it was really great working with the writers and creators to come up with that world and the actors that would populate that world from the concept of a book. And that was really the first time I'd ever gotten a chance to do that for a series. I'd gotten a chance to do stuff like that many, many times on films, you know, John Adams, and which was an amazing thing too. And one of the great things that I loved about working on John Adams was that because it was a historical piece and it was pretty accurate, what we discovered was, because do you ever wonder why sometimes period pieces like this get populated with British actors versus American actors? Well, what we discovered in the course of casting John Adams, because we really wanted to be as authentic as we could and cast Americans as Americans and Brits as Brits, but there was this accent thing that we had to deal with. And what I mean by that is that there's this sort of mid-Atlantic-y speaking thing that happened, you know, because this was a long time ago. So Americans that populated the small United States of America back then were all just over here from overseas. And so they didn't speak the way that we speak. They had a more formal way of speaking. And that formal way of speaking seemed to flow out of the mouths of British actors just so much easier than American actors. And the other thing that I noticed is that American actors tend to have a real relaxed quality with their body. And that's, you know, when you're doing a period piece, there's much more of a formality to the body, too. And so ultimately, we did end up casting way more Brits, English actors, than we did Americans for that piece. It was just a really little interesting tidbit.